Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of Issues of the Heart podcast. I'm your host, Brother Kobe.
I'm Rogers. Hey, today we're talking about Mother's Day. We want to wish all of the mothers in the world a wonderful, happy Mother's Day. We want to wish our wives a happy Mother's Day. We want to wish our moms happy Mother's Day as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit of just in terms of like, what does it mean to us, maybe as having mothers and the responsibility and the duty that's there and the privilege. We're not mothers, obviously, but it is from what we understand, no, it's not an easy task to be a mother. So we know from a father's perspective and can certainly share there. But as we talk about motherhood and being a mother, we just want to be able to give acknowledgement, to give honor, to be able to give praise, and to rightly to thank those who are our mothers and those who continue to be mothers all around. The Bible talks a lot about motherhood, and there are a couple of texts of scripture. Another, we look at a number of them, but we want to speak to it and in sharing to it at least a couple of pieces just to continue to give encouragement, because I know that sometimes just being recognized and feeling recognized one day of the year, it can be a little daunting. And we want you to know that hey, your work for 365 days a year or 366 days a year, that it does not go unnoticed. Sometimes it may not get the acclaim and acclamation that it deserves, but it's a big feat. It's a lot that goes into being a mom, and we're so grateful and so thankful for it. And reflecting upon it, there are a couple of things that stand out. One poem we want to read and to share with you is talks from a gentleman named Herbert Farnham, and he wrote a poem that's called "God's Masterpiece is Mother." And I like to read it because I think of my mom. I'm sure you think of your mom as well. And in the Black community, in any community, it's a mom is special, but in the Black community, you oftentimes see moms making even greater sacrifices. Sometimes because you just don't have things, you see them going without so that you can have. And so those are lessons that always stick out: the sacrifices, the giving themselves of themselves conditionally. And again, not that no other race does it, but particularly you're in a situation where sometimes there are tight economic circumstances, money is gone, there's more check left than there is month, and you see your mom making sacrifices. Usually it doesn't fall so much on the dad, but we resonate, recognize, hey, mom made these sacrifices, mommy made these sacrifices. And as a kid, I don't know about you, but you may not even pay attention to it. Sometimes you get entitled, sometimes you're not paying attention, you just feel, hey, this is life. But when you get older, and you look back and you reflect on those things, you begin to analyze and start saying, hey, this sacrifice was made for me to be able to do this, for me to be able to get this, article of clothing, for me to go on this school trip, for me to be able to do this at school, for me to do this with my friends. Sacrifices were made. And so you can't go back and repay those things as such, but you begin to recognize and to value and to appreciate and to have a greater love than before. So let me read this quick, and then I'll give it to you. This is called God's Motherpiece is Mother by Herbert Farnham. So we'll read this and sharing it with you all. God took pieces of everything wonderful to make moms. God took the fragrance of a flower, the majesty of a tree, the gentleness of morning dew, the calm of a quiet sea, the beauty of the twilight hour, the soul of a starry night, the laughter of a rippling brook, the grace of a bird in flight. Then God fashioned from these things a creation like no other. And when his masterpiece was through, he called it simply Mother. We think of that in respect that is, Adam and Eve were like the crowning act of creation. And we like to say then through that poem, it's like, the mother, just the jewel, what she is, who you are, what you represent. It means so much in terms of legacy, training, development, and everything that is there. So again, in this Mother's Day, then we salute you. We want to give your flowers and recognition now.
Yeah, we would have had our wives on, but they don't like being on camera. So
Yeah, right.
honored them in that wise. But, truly, the Bible says, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God gives you. And so that's called the first commandment with promise. And so with God recognizes the importance of that parental relationship, that not just when we were kids, but as you get older. And I think more so as you get older, you appreciate, especially when you become a parent, you can appreciate the sacrifices. You appreciate some of the things that they did even more so. Looking back on your childhood, even as a child, you may have disagreed and didn't like certain things, but as you got older, you realize why they did it. Why they set certain rules, boundaries, and so forth, and then you appreciate uh, what they've done. And so this is just our chance to, and we give them this day of honor, but the commandment is for every day. We show respect and honor every single day, but to set aside, nothing's wrong with setting aside a day to recognize the sacrifices, the love, the devotion that mothers have had towards their children. Now, this is what I was going to say is that, even with fathers and mothers, the relationship is always going to be different. The relationship with my dad is going to be different from the relationship with my mom. And so they both can make sacrifices. They both can be devoted. They both can do different things to help and benefit the household, to try to form a righteous character. However, the relationship is going to be different between the two. And so this is the time that we honor, I think about just my wife and the sacrifices that she makes for the household. And you read about Proverbs 31, a virtuous woman. And one of the things the Bible says, listen, the price is above rubies, meaning when you find that type of woman, wife, mother, their worth is far more above rubies. It can't be compared to it. All the things that they benefit for the household, all the services that they render, all of their devotion. If you had all the money couldn't purchase the things. You got a lot of rich people that are miserable, a lot of rich people going through it, a lot of rich people troubled. Even Biggie said, more money, more problems. It didn't, the Bible don't say virtuous woman equals more problems. No, it equals peace. And this is a peace that cannot be purchased but by a right choice. And having that mother figure in the home doing things the right way adds a value to you. It adds a value to the home. It brings peace. You may have strife and different things out in the world, but when you come home to have that solace, to have that comfort, someone that is wise, that gives you good advice, that can be a strength and a backbone to you, to be someone that you can unburden your heart with, that right person. So, I give my love and gratitude to my wife for what she has been, what she does, and I recognize the devotion and sacrifice and the things that she does. And I wish that for anybody, to have that mother figure. The Bible talks about mothers in Israel. And, I think about the first time that term mother in Israel was used was in the book of Judges. And this is what it says, Judges chapter 5 and verse 7. Said the inhabitants of the villages ceased, and faithful in Israel. I'm sorry. The inhabitants of the villages ceased. They ceased in Israel until that I, Deborah, arose, a mother in Israel. And so she's talking about how the inhabitants of the villages, how they were languaged and how they were troubled, how all of these things were going wrong until she arose as a mother in Israel. And we have to understand how important the role of the mother is, that she can lift a village. The Bible said, or we say, it takes a village. And I remember seeing, it was a guy on YouTube. He took his phone and he scanned the block. And he said, do you see this? Do you see this? He said, why our communities are so torn down and, ravaged with violence and different things. Children don't want to listen and so forth. He said, the villages are gone. He said, back in my day, and back in mine too, you will see mothers and grandmothers all on these porches, and they will just be parenting the neighborhood kids, and then we were respectful, we listened. They can talk to us, bring us aside, encourage us, bring us in the house, give us something to eat. Those mothers in the neighborhood, where are they? And you see the fact that they're not there, you see the effect on the community. And so we understand, and part of it is a lot of these little, hard-headed parents that don't want other people parenting their child. I don't want you to say nothing about your child is running amok in the neighborhood, but you don't want nobody to say something to them. And so now we see this is what it has led to. So now the mothers are inside, like, I'm gonna mind my business. You don't want me, being involved, helping you do this and do that. And so because of this generation that's come forth that doesn't have that same type of respect, now we have a shift, a difference in our communities because we basically told the mothers in Israel, be quiet and shut up. I have this situation in 2 Samuel chapter 20, verse 19. It says, I am one of them that are peaceable and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Why will you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? And so this is a woman saying, listen, will you destroy a city? Will you destroy a mother in Israel? Why would you do this? Because in destroying the mother of Israel, you're ravishing and destroying a community. And so according to the Bible, we see how important these mothers are to the community. And if we destroy and remove that, then virtually you destroy a community. Because for the most part, again, I know society shifts, society's different, society changes, but normally while the father is off at work, who's there? They're normally at home with the child. They're creating destinies. They're training what they bring, the characters that they form are creating the destinies of our children. You have these great Picasso painters, you have these great sculpturists, and they're able to do great works of art, and we extol them, and we buy their paintings for thousands, yes, millions of dollars. And the Basquiat, I think he's the new guy that's people are into him, and paintings and things that they create sell for millions, and people are seeing value in it. But we can't see the value of a mother who is shaping characters and creating minds that can change the world, and we don't see their value. And so the mother's work is so important. And we can't underestimate it. The destiny of our world is basically in her hands because she's training these children. And so we have to recognize their sacrifice, be there to encourage them, be there to uplift them, be able to be, this is the help me. And they're not just a helper for us, we're also a helper for them. And we must remember that and give honor where honor is due.
As you talk about the sacrifices that moms make, and think about my wife, and a lot of times people say, hey, you guys did a great job of helping your girls through school, training them up and so forth. And that's like, hey, I appreciate that, but really my role was minimal. And you go back to that, and that is the work, the hard work, and in particular, my wife pointing to my girls, to train them, to nurture them, to give them godly instruction, to be able to help them not only in things of religious matters, but also things in secular and social matters, being able to learn and to grow and so forth. Those things are all important. Those are like the building blocks, again, that mothers make. And yeah, fathers, we have a role and a responsibility in that regard, but the expression, the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. There's a reason for that. A great impetus is placed there, and importance. And so again, society may look at it and it may appear to be unnoticed, but certainly in the sight of heaven, your work is not unnoticed. The other thing I also would like to bring out is that sometimes sometimes moms become discouraged because you feel that your work is not as good as somebody else's, that the work the fruitfulness that you see in your vineyard doesn't look like somebody else's, and maybe your child isn't turning out the right way. It seems to be going astray no matter what you try to instruct and what you try to ingrain. Then you certainly remember to continue to do the work that God has called you to do, the faithfulness to Him, sowing those seeds in faith and in love, and it will come back. And one thing also to keep in mind too is that children are going to be kids, and sometimes people have that difficult to understand. But I read in a book that spoke to that. It says that don't expect your kids to be perfect, or to try to make them men and women in their acts at once. You think back on the times in which you made mistakes, and I know that to some people that scares you because you're like, man, I did a whole bunch of stuff when I was a kid, and I don't want my kids doing any of that. And you sometimes overcorrect because you're like, no, I smoked a cigarette when I was 7, so I want to make sure that they ain't gone. I'm not saying don't be mindful of things, but also keeping, in mind. And you're like, well, hey, I stole a car, so I'm going to make sure the keys, just, all these different things as you begin to look through your kid as, like a mini me. And in some respects, I get it. I know that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but if you're trying to live a righteous life and you're trying to guide your kids in a righteous way, there are going to be some times still in which they're going to make mistakes because nobody's perfect. And you need to understand. We need to understand that there are sometimes, you share with people, sometimes there are moments of defiance in which a kid may have, and then there's sometimes just moments of ignorance. Sometimes kids will do things just are the dumbest things for no reason whatsoever. And you like trying to make it into a real spiritual deal and so forth. It's like, hey, sometimes it's adults, we do some stupid stuff. It's like, okay, you can't really explain it. It's just like, why you did it, I don't know. And I know people may not want to hear that as an answer, but it's just sometimes you just do stupid stuff. But you want to look at it and have some mercy, have some grace and forgiveness. I remember when I think I was maybe 15, 16, we had just gotten a new car. It wasn't like a brand new car, it was a new car to us. And it was my mom's car. It was a Honda, I think it was a Honda Accord. I think it was either Honda Accord, pretty sure it was a Honda Accord. So I know it was a Honda, Phenomenal Accord, whatever the one is right below it, I don't remember. But anyway, it was blue, like nice, really nice. And there was a problem with the starter, which I didn't know. And my mom knew how to, you had to crank it a certain way. We just gotten it, had to be fixed, to fix that piece to it. But you had to crank it a certain way. Sometimes we deal with those cars, right? So anyway, my mom's a teacher. We're in high school. She finishes up her day. I'm out of class. She says to me, hey, just, you can go to the car. And I would just go down to the car and just, wait for her to come down. So I go downstairs, get into the car, and I'm like, you know what? I got my license on. I just go ahead and just drive the car on over to the front. So, pick her up, and anyway, so I'm turning the key, and it turns, but it doesn't catch. And so I keep doing it. Turn doesn't catch, turn doesn't catch, turn doesn't catch. Kept doing it. Now, if you know anything about starters, I was tearing it up, because I'm holding it. So long story short, I think I was able finally to get it to crank and to move to the front. And when my mom got in, she was certainly surprised that I put the car over there because I hadn't been asked to do it. But you're a kid, you think you grown, you can do whatever you want, nobody can tell you anything. And then, again, now keep in mind, still, I was in a church, so I'm trying to do right, but I still felt, okay, this will be fine. So we'll go home, and then later on, my dad comes and he goes to crank up the car won't crank. And it's like, hey, what's going on? And so I had to share what happened. Now, I wasn't trying to be like, I was certainly, was I wrong for doing it when I was told just go to the car? Yeah. Or was I trying to burn up the starter and cost them like $400? No. Now, again, $400 is $400, right? But it's like kids are going to do some stupid stuff. Okay. And so keep that in mind. And I didn't get into serious trouble with it. I don't remember if I know I was working, so I don't know if I volunteered to pay or what happened, but kids do stuff. Okay. Keep that in mind. So, my kids, they do some stuff, hey, look at the offense. Remember that you did some stuff too. You took the car and you did something stupid. Your parents told you to come in at curfew. You didn't come in at that curfew. Your parents told you different things. And so let's not act like we don't make mistakes, so we didn't make mistakes. And again, I know that, hey, we don't want them to follow into the same footsteps and so forth, but that's a part of being able to open their hearts to ours. When they see that you understand, the punishment. I'm not saying you can't punish your children, that it does not meet the crime, but we're not going to go overboard. Recognize they're not going to be perfect. They're going to make some mistakes. They're going to bruise their knees. They're going to scuff themselves up. But as a mom, that's part of what you do. You're there to pick them back up, to draw them back to you. Jesus said, how often I would have gathered you under my wings as a hen doth gather her brood under her, or brood under her wings, but you would not. Now you will gather them in, and there's a bond that is there so that even in moments in which there's failure and disappointment, that there's still that paternal love that is strong enough to be able to go beyond showing and evoking the love that God has to us and keeping that cord open, because you want them to still be able to come and to trust you. When they made a mistake, they drew outside the lines. So when there's bigger problems, bigger issues in life, as you mentioned, that text is always there to honor your father and mother. that they will then be comfortable coming back and saying, you know what, Mom, I made a big mistake. This is what happened. And to share it versus going to some knucklehead that doesn't know anything about life and trying to tell them, and they giving them, the worst advice ever, and they make your situation bad worse. But keeping that door open so that you'll be able to pray with them, you'll be able to guide them, you'll be able to counsel them and help them to be able to walk in the way of right.
Yeah, it's interesting how, God, uses the things of it to show his care. He, talks about or puts himself in the thought frame of, a woman nursing and caring for the child and so forth. And so he understands the nurturing qualities of a mother is almost like inborn, like they have it. Like we have more different type of instincts that we have, not necessarily the nurturing type, but they have those qualities. It's almost like it comes with batteries included, right? And so they have that. I know growing up, my mother being the primary person at the house, because for those that know my situation, my father was gone for some years. So normally, you have this thought of what father's going, you have the oldest son, you're like, well, you be the man of the house. Well, even though my mom was still there, my older sister, she became the woman of the house. So she took care and became like the parent to us, even though we bucked up against it. Like, you ain't the boss of me. She had to beat us into submission. But had to delegate the cleaning duties. She had to be the one cooking. She had to be the one, basically taking care of us while my mom was away working. And so from her young age, she had that burden of, having those motherly qualities, being able to watch over her younger brothers and sisters. So, she was almost like a mother figure, and that's why, in life, you just see where she progressed and where she was able to go, because from a child, she was doing motherly like duties, taking care of the home. And there's nothing wrong with, mothers training daughters to be able to do these domestic duties, be able to run a household, because more often than not, you're going to be in that situation. So I give shouts and props to my sister Josie for, her care of us as a young age. And I did call Chinese. I know you're watching. When she came down here, I was able to look and see the way she watched over and dealt with her boys, and the good character that they're developing. And I had to call her and let her know, like, man, I was shocked. Like, you really have your boys in a good space. And so I was able to see you with your child and how you interact with them, and give her praise and respect for how she's raising her boys, because you almost hear them saying about Jesus, can't any good thing come out of Nazareth? I'm like, well, you raising these young boys in Iraq, you know what I'm saying? And for you to raise them with these good qualities and be mannerable and polite and with such good characters, you can say, hey, can somebody come out of Chicago, with this type of character? And yet you're doing an amazing job. So I commend you for that. We have to remember this though, birth and heredity. Children are born with certain traits from the parents, but we have to make sure even that some of those bad traits are not perpetuated in the children through us, and you think about Jacob, he was called Jacob from birth because they saw certain traits in him from birth, not from training, but by birth. They called him Jacob, this deceiver, this conniver, this sly, slick person, right? Yet when you look at a certain part of Jacob's life, when his father Isaac wanted to give the birthright to the brother, it was the mother that came to Jacob and said, "Hey, go lie to your father, essentially. Go deceive your father." And Jacob was like, "No, I don't want to do that." But she insisted. So now, not just by birth, but by training, she's training him to perpetuate that bad character in the child. And so we have to be careful, parent-wise, that yes, our children may have received certain traits from us. We don't want to perpetuate those traits in training so that it's more settled and instilled in him. And it took Jacob a while to be able to get that character trait out of him for God to help him to overcome that lying and deceptive spirit that he had, and to hone in on the good character traits that they may receive from us, and try to build upon that so they can be the people who God designed for them to be. And listen, whether a woman is in church or not, or whether she, is faithful to God or not, I don't want to make it seem like we're only praising women who are in the church, but maybe you're non-religious and you're a mother, but you're doing the best that you can. Yes, those mothers need to be commended and praised for their work as well, because they are dedicated, they're devoted to their children as well. But we understand that there's an ultimate goal. God is going to one day say to parents, where is the flock? Where's the beautiful flock that I've given you? We're going to have to give an account for being able to bring forth. God is loaning these children to you for the time on this earth, and he's going to come to you to receive of his own. And so we want to be able to give an account to say, I've raised these children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and I'm bringing them to you to offer them back to you the same way you've given them to me. And so we want to raise our children in God-fearing, in the God-fearing atmosphere, because we just don't want them to live good here, but we want them to live in a great hereafter. And so we're not just preparing them to be great here on this earth. While that is nice and good, that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is that they may reflect the image of God and be able to live eternally with him. And so we commend the mothers that are striving to raise their children after this sort. And so we praise you, we love you, and we commend you for your work.
So with that, again, we want to thank you for joining us today, and we remind you to keep your heart with all diligence, because out of it are the issues of life.